You say you want healthy relationships, but why do you keep ending up with people who hurt you? Why, even after recognizing the patterns, do you still fall into the same traps? Why does every new relationship quicken your heart with hope that this time will be different despite all evidence to the contrary? Don't lie to yourself. You're not just unlucky in relationships. You're unconsciously seeking what feels familiar, not what's healthy. Carl Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And maybe that's exactly what's happening to you right now. That person who ghosted you after 3 months, that partner who belittled your dreams, that friend who only called when they needed something. These aren't random events, they're patterns, and you're an active participant in them. You're not just experiencing bad luck, you're facing a mirror that's trying to show you something you've never had the courage to see. Look closely at your last 3 relationships. Notice anything? The faces change, but the feelings remain the same. That crushing disappointment. That moment when you realize you've been undervalued again. That familiar ache when you're left wondering what you did wrong. But here's what most people miss. Your brain is wired to seek the familiar, even when the familiar hurts. If your earliest experiences taught you that love comes with pain, your unconscious mind will actually seek relationships where that pattern can play out again. It's not because you want to be hurt. It's because your deepest self is trying to heal old wounds by recreating them, hoping for a different ending this time. That flutter of excitement you feel for people who are emotionally unavailable, that's not chemistry, that's recognition. Your nervous system recognizing a chance to replay old patterns. That tendency to ignore red flags from charming people, that's not optimism. That's your unconscious following a script written long ago. This video is not about generic dating advice, nor about pretending you're perfect and everyone else is the problem. Here, the truth will hurt. It will expose patterns you've been blind to. It will make you see your own role in your pain. But it will also set you free from the cycle of perpetual hurt. The reality is brutal. Often what we call bad luck in love is just our unconscious recreating familiar wounds, seeking healing in all the wrong places. That feeling when someone pulls away and you chase harder? That's not love, it's an old fear being triggered. That relief when someone finally gives you a crumb of attention after days of silence? That's not gratitude, it's the comfort of a familiar cycle, one where you've learned to survive on scraps. And what if I told you that this pattern of being hurt has nothing to do with the people you choose and everything to do with what you haven't yet resolved within yourself? What if the common denominator isn't all the jerks out there, but the wounds you carry that make certain types of people feel like home? In this video, I will guide you through a deep, transformative journey. We will explore the hidden mechanisms that keep you trapped, like the comfort you find in chaos because it's all you've known. We will understand why you unconsciously choose people who hurt you, like how that critical partner reminds you of a parent whose approval you never got. And most importantly, how to finally break free from this pattern by recognizing that what feels like love might actually be your oldest pain in disguise. I'll show you why you keep mistaking intensity for intimacy, how that roller coaster of extreme highs followed by crushing lows isn't passion, it's trauma bonding, how your nervous system has become addicted to the chemical cocktail of anxiety and occasional relief that toxic relationships provide, why that spark you chase might actually be your body recognizing a chance to replay old wounds. But be prepared. What you're about to hear may not be easy because real growth never is. It will require you to question everything. Why you're drawn to people who can't commit. Why you tolerate behavior you'd never advise a friend to accept. Why part of you believes this is all you deserve. But it's only by facing these truths that you will finally stop being the person who always gets hurt. Are you ready? If you are, let's move on. Have you ever wondered why you consistently find yourself drawn to people who ultimately hurt you? Why, despite all your best intentions, you end up in the same painful situation? It's like you have a radar for people who can't or won't love you properly. This isn't random. There's a psychological pattern at work here called repetition compulsion. Your unconscious mind's tendency to recreate familiar situations even when they're painful. Think about it. As children, we learn what love looks like from our earliest relationships. If you grew up with inconsistent affection, maybe a parent who was sometimes loving but often distant, or who gave attention only when you achieved something, your brain wired itself to recognize this pattern as love. Your nervous system literally coded this hot and cold treatment as familiar, as home. Now as an adult, you walk into a room full of perfectly nice people, and who catches your eye? The one who reminds your unconscious of that original pattern. It's not their looks, it's something in their energy, in how they hold back just enough, in how they make you work for connection. Your conscious mind thinks chemistry, while your unconscious recognizes the chance to replay an old unhealed dynamic. This is why advice like, just choose better people, falls flat. You're not choosing with your rational mind. You're choosing with parts of your brain that operate below conscious awareness. Parts that believe recreating old wounds might somehow heal them this time. Remember that person who'd disappear for days then come back with just enough warmth to keep you hooked? Or the one who'd make you feel like the most special person in the world one day, then treat you like a stranger the next? Your rational mind knew this was unhealthy, but something deeper kept you invested. That's projection in action. You weren't just wanting them, you were seeking healing through them. You project your unmet needs onto new people, hoping they'll finally provide what others couldn't. This time they'll see your worth. This time, your love will be enough to make them stay. This time they'll choose you consistently. But they can't heal wounds they didn't create, and most don't even recognize the role they're being asked to play. There's also a critical confusion happening. Intensity gets mistaken for intimacy. The anxiety of wondering if they'll text back, the relief when they finally do, the hypervigilance about their moods. These create a heightened emotional state that feels significant. Your brain releases the same chemicals during this emotional roller coaster as it does during genuine connection. So the distinction blurs. That's why stable, secure relationships might initially feel boring if you're used to the drama of uncertainty. And notice how you ignore red flags with certain people that you'd immediately spot in others. Your friend's partner treats them the same way, and you think, why do they put up with that? But when it's happening to you, you make excuses. They're just stressed. They had a difficult childhood. They'll change when they see how much I care. This selective blindness isn't accidental. It's your unconscious choosing what feels familiar over what's actually healthy. You're not choosing these people randomly. You're choosing them because something in them resonates with your unhealed wounds. The emotional unavailability, the subtle put-downs, the hot and cold behavior. These are the red flags you ignore because they feel like home. Not a happy home, but a familiar one. And the brain prioritizes familiar over happy every time unless you consciously intervene. But understanding the pattern is only the beginning. Now we need to understand why you allow yourself to stay when the hurt begins. You learned too early that to be loved, you needed to compromise to make yourself smaller, to tolerate what shouldn't be tolerated. Maybe it was watching your parents' relationship where one always gave in to keep the peace. Maybe it was being told don't be so sensitive when something hurt you. Maybe it was seeing that being easy to deal with got you more approval than standing your ground. Whatever the specifics, the lesson was clear. Your needs, your boundaries, your pain, these were less important than keeping others happy. This created a split inside you, a divide between who you really are and who you learned to be to survive emotionally. Psychologists call this your authentic self versus your adaptive self. Your authentic self has real needs, feelings, and boundaries. Your adaptive self learned to override these to maintain connection with important people. Over time, this adaptive self, this mask, became so familiar that you might not even recognize it as separate from who you really are. That's why you find yourself saying it's fine when it's not. That's why you swallow your hurt when someone dismisses you. That's why you make excuses for behavior that tears you down. Your adaptive self jumps in automatically to preserve the relationship at all costs because it was programmed to believe that relationships only last when you compromise yourself. Look at your phone right now. How many unsent messages are sitting in your drafts? Things you wanted to say but deleted because you feared the response. How many times have you typed and retyped a simple text, trying to find the perfect words that won't upset the other person? That hesitation isn't caution. It's your authentic self being silenced by your adaptive self. Each time you stay with someone who hurts you, A war rages inside. Part of you knows you deserve better, while another part fears that better doesn't exist for you. At least they love me sometimes, you tell yourself. At least they come back. At least they don't hurt me in the ways others did. These thoughts aren't rational assessments. They're the voice of someone who's learned to settle for crumbs because they don't believe they deserve the whole loaf. This internal conflict creates very real physical and emotional symptoms. That knot in your stomach when your phone lights up with their name. The anxiety that floods you when they're upset. The exhaustion you feel from constantly walking on eggshells. The relief that washes over you when they're finally in a good mood. These aren't just feelings. They're your body's way of telling you something is wrong. Your nervous system spends so much energy managing this relationship that little is left for you. Notice how after interacting with them, you feel drained, rather than energized. How you've perhaps lost touch with friends who don't understand why you stay. How hobbies and interests that once brought you joy have fallen by the wayside as you focus on making this relationship work. This isn't love, it's survival mode. And the most painful part? You know this. Deep down, beneath the rationalizations and hopes, you know this isn't what love should feel like. That's why you clicked on this video. That's why something in you has been whispering, this isn't right, even as you try to convince yourself otherwise. This discomfort isn't just pain, it's a message. Your body and mind are telling you something is wrong, that anxiety isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Your system knows you're betraying yourself and it's trying desperately to alert you. If this resonates with you, subscribe to continue this journey of self-discovery. Because now we need to go even deeper, to examine the core beliefs that keep you locked in these patterns of hurt. You might think you're consciously choosing relationships, but what if deeper beliefs are making these decisions for you? What if below your awareness there's a set of unwritten rules governing who you're drawn to and what you'll tolerate? These core beliefs weren't chosen by you. They were installed early, before you had the capacity to question them. Maybe you watched your mother stay with your father despite his drinking. Maybe you saw your father work himself to exhaustion, trying to please a mother who was never satisfied. Maybe you were the child who learned that love had to be earned through achievement or obedience or never causing trouble. These experiences created beliefs like, love requires sacrifice. If I'm perfect enough, they'll finally love me right. This is as good as it gets for someone like me. If I leave, I'll end up alone forever. They hurt me because I'm not enough. These aren't rational thoughts. They're emotional programming, running silently in the background of your life. The most dangerous part? You don't experience these as beliefs, you experience them as truth. They don't feel like opinions. They feel like reality. And because they operate below conscious awareness, they're rarely questioned. Notice how you always find evidence for what you already believe. If you believe, I'm not enough, you'll focus on every time someone seems disappointed in you, cataloging it as proof. If you believe relationships always hurt, you'll emphasize the painful moments and minimize the good ones. If you believe I need to earn love, you'll continuously work for affection that should be freely given. These beliefs create self-fulfilling prophecies. Believe you're unworthy of consistent love? You'll choose partners who confirm this by treating you inconsistently. Believe relationships are always power struggles? You'll find yourself in dynamic after dynamic where someone has the upper hand. Believe you need to be perfect to be loved? You'll attract people who withhold affection when you inevitably fail to meet impossible standards. Look at your relationship history. That partner who cheated then convinced you it was because you weren't attentive enough? That friendship where you gave everything while receiving little in return? That situationship where they kept you hanging on promises they never intended to keep? These weren't accidents or bad luck. They were your beliefs made manifest. When that person ignored your texts for days, something in you whispered, this is what you deserve. When they criticized you in front of friends, something in you nodded, they're right about me. When they refused to commit after years, something in you sighed, this is as good as it gets. Here's the paradox. Acknowledging these patterns isn't about blame, but about reclaiming power. You didn't choose these beliefs, but as an adult, you can choose to examine and change them. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. As long as these beliefs remain invisible, they control your choices. Bringing them into the light is the first step toward freedom. This isn't about blaming yourself for others' mistreatment. It's about understanding that healing isn't about finding someone who won't hurt you. It's about becoming someone who doesn't allow hurt to be the defining feature of your relationships. For deeper exploration of these patterns, my workbook, Breaking the Cycle, offers guided reflections to uncover and transform these core beliefs. You'll find the link in the description. Now that we've identified the problem, let's talk about how you begin to transform these patterns. How you stop being the person who always gets hurt by becoming the person who knows their worth. There comes a point when you realize you can no longer live divided between what you know you deserve and what you accept. Maybe it's right now watching this video. Maybe it's after the next disappointment. But when that moment comes, real transformation becomes possible. This transformation isn't about finding someone who won't hurt you. It's about becoming whole yourself. Psychologists call this individuation, the process of integrating all parts of yourself, including those you've rejected or hidden, into a complete identity that doesn't depend on others for validation or completion. This journey starts with a radical idea. What if you're already complete? What if you don't need someone else's validation to be worthy? What if the love you've been chasing outside yourself has been within you all along, waiting to be recognized? This isn't easy. You'll need to confront the comfort in familiar pain, that pull toward people who feel like home, even when home wasn't healthy. You'll need to tolerate the discomfort of new, healthier patterns, that strange feeling when someone respects your boundaries instead of pushing against them, that unfamiliar quiet when drama is replaced by stability. At first, healthy relationships might feel wrong. When someone answers your texts consistently, a part of you might feel suspicious rather than secure. When someone respects your no without punishment, you might feel unmoored rather than relieved. When someone sees your flaws and loves you anyway, you might feel exposed rather than accepted. This discomfort doesn't mean the relationship is wrong. It means your system is recalibrating, learning that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. This process requires retraining your nervous system. Notice how, when you stand up for yourself, your heart races and your mouth goes dry. That's old programming telling you it's dangerous to have needs. Notice how when someone treats you well consistently, you start looking for the catch, the other shoe that must surely drop. That's old programming telling you love is always conditional. The key is to recognize these reactions without letting them drive your behavior. Feel the fear of setting boundaries, then set them anyway. Feel the suspicion when someone treats you well, then accept their kindness anyway. Feel the urge to test someone's love by pushing them away, then stay present anyway. You'll need to learn the difference between chemistry and compatibility. Chemistry is that immediate spark, often triggered by the familiar, even when the familiar is harmful. Compatibility is alignment in values, goals, and how you treat each other. It builds more slowly, but lasts far longer. Start asking, do they consistently show up? Do their actions match their words? Do I feel safe expressing my needs? Do they respect my boundaries? These questions matter more than the intensity of your initial attraction. Begin by questioning every belief that tells you hurt is what you deserve. When the thought, "this is as good as it gets," arises, counter it with evidence of people in healthy, supportive relationships. When you think they'll change if I just love them enough, remember the history proving they won't. When you believe I'm too much or not enough, recognize these as old wounds speaking, not truth. Practice small acts of self-trust daily. Notice what feels good versus what feels familiar. Honor your intuition when it whispers something's wrong instead of rationalizing red flags. Set one boundary and maintain it, proving to yourself you can protect your own well-being. If you've stayed with me this far, it's because you recognize something needs to change. You're tired of being the person who always gets hurt, who hopes each new relationship will be different while choosing the same patterns again and again. Stopping this cycle isn't about finding perfect people. It's about becoming a person who doesn't tolerate what once seemed normal. It's about recognizing that loneliness within a harmful relationship is far more damaging than the temporary loneliness of being on your own. Yes, this path is difficult. You're rewiring patterns that may have existed for decades. There will be moments when old habits call to you, when someone who feels familiar but harmful appears and tests your resolve. But consider the alternative, continuing to live a life where being hurt is your normal, where love and pain are so tangled you can't separate them. This isn't just about better relationships with others. It's about honoring the relationship with yourself, about becoming the person you needed when you were younger, someone who protects you, values you, and knows you're worthy of love that builds rather than diminishes. As Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but it's also the most liberating. When you no longer need others to make you whole, you stop accepting relationships that break you into pieces. What pattern are you ready to break free from? Share in the comments as your first act of commitment to change. Making your intention public creates accountability and connects you with others on the same journey. If this message resonated, subscribe for more content that goes beyond surface advice to real transformation. And don't miss the next video where we'll explore how to identify healthy relationships before getting invested, how to see green flags when you've been programmed to normalize red ones.